Kyle Koenen, who's policy director at Will, joins me on the program to talk about this. You know, first, my first impression, one, it's a great tool. There's lots of information. You get information on enrollment, on cost, on breakdown of what's funding, what entity is funding what, which school district spends the most money, which school district performs the worst. Violence is another thing, chronic absenteeism now, and we are not looking good on the school scorecard. Kyle, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. We're really excited to relaunch this today. As you mentioned, it was down for a couple months, but for your listeners, if they want to go check it out, I'll give a plug at the end too, but it's knowmyschoolwi.com. Easy to find, but it's a great one-stop tool for parents, taxpayers, school board members to really get their hands on all the data that they can, look at to help hold their local officials accountable and make decisions for their kids.
Let's go with some broad themes here. We already know how terrible the actual performances, academic performances. You've updated this so that you have accounted for the manipulation of the cut scores, correct?
Yeah, so now we have a marker. Back in 2020, or last year, the DPI lowered the proficiency standards for math and ELA proficiency. That's English and language arts. So we have a marker there. Unfortunately, you can't compare, data from 2023 and before because of this manipulation that DPI has done. So at least you'll be able to see where they did that manipulation and really kind of surmise for yourself why you see this increase in test scores over that time. In fact, we did some calculations. We figured their changing of those cut scores probably accounts for like an 8-point boost in test scores with no real actual change in academic performance.
All they did was change the cut scores, and so suddenly proficient was not proficient, and magically the kid who couldn't read still can't read, but now is being marked as proficient in Wisconsin DPI, and that still is the case is astonishing to me. But let's get to some of the other data metrics that you've got. Number one, mind-blowing, school enrollment's way down, but school spending's way up. Let's start there. You're not seeing, and not only in school enrollment down, if you look at first grade's not even close to matching what 12th grade is now, and 12th grade enrollment is down. What's going on with Wisconsin public school kids, that we're just not seeing the enrollment like we used to? And then please explain to me why we keep spending more money.
Yeah, that's a good question. Since 2015, we've seen public school enrollment dropping by 8% statewide. And there's a number of factors. Obviously, there's a lot of demographic problems. Wisconsin isn't really a growing state. And people are having less kids. So that's a big factor. But then you can also look at this and see the growth of school choice is, also contributing to that. People are voting with their feet, choosing schools that work best for them. But since 2015, we've seen almost 300 school districts with declining enrollment. And to that point that you made about first grade enrollment, we've added a new feature this year where you can see the current year's enrollment by grade level. And what that really can show you is what the longer term trends of enrollment are going to look like in every individual district. So using Waukesha as an example, their first grade class is only about 61% of the size of its 12th grade class. So I live in Waukesha. They're going through a big discussion about right sizing the district and closing down some schools. And I think that's going to be a consistent theme across the state, that a lot of districts are going to have to start having hard discussions about, do we need all this capacity?
I really, bet you $1,000 right now that in the next 10 years, Waukesha will put a school building referendum to the public. I will bet you any amount of money that even with declining enrollment and the talk about closing down potential buildings, they will want to build something new.
It's quite possible. That's definitely been the trend over time, is that districts have continued to go to referendum to raise their revenues. And as you pointed out, revenues continue to grow. You look at Milwaukee public schools pre-COVID, they were, in the $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 per pupil range. They're up almost to $25,000 per pupil.
Yeah, it's insane.
In 2025. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, and a nice thing on this tool as well, you can hit adjust for inflation or don't adjust for inflation. And so that's something to consider as well. I live in a school district that has declining enrollment, and there in the last 10 years, there have been 2 building referenda. 2. So that's why I bring that up, because there's never the desire to continue to spend more money is never satiated. And you will, and so, but this tool makes you understand it is not necessary. Here's one of the things I like a lot about this as well. I can now find the information on student discipline. I can find information about crimes that are taking place in schools. And I was shocked to learn that there are over 80,000 disciplinary incidents that include very serious things like drugs, alcohol, assault, weapon related across all Wisconsin schools. But what is going on that it seems that trend of disciplinary action, the actual discipline, may not be as harsh as it used to be, but the incidents are going up when the number of kids, again, in the classroom is going down.
Yeah, one of the things we know parents care about most when they look at choosing a school is, the most instinctual thing is this school going to be safe? And we had this big debate in Milwaukee over having school resource officers in the buildings to keep the school safe. But we've also seen this trend of softer discipline policies that's been going on around the country, where we're not holding kids accountable for their actions. And I think that's something that we've really pushed at Will, that we need to take a closer look at and ensure that teachers are backed up in the classroom, and that they're honestly the biggest reason for teacher burnout we have right now is because they have kids that really just don't act right. So we've seen this increase, and I think a lot of it increased post-COVID, right? A lot of this is tied together with chronic absenteeism, which is kids missing, at least 10 days of school out of the year. When you saw that number rise, you've seen the number of discipline incidents also go up.
Yeah, the chronic absenteeism is off the charts. It's off the charts. I can't believe it. I mean, there's a huge, in every single school district, but statewide, the problem of chronic absenteeism is massive. And yet, Kyle, the statewide graduation rate's over 90%. Tell me how that works. Tell me how kids are right around 30% proficient in reading and math. There are more disciplinary actions that are going on, more disciplinary incidents that are going on. There are fewer kids in the classroom. There's more money being spent. And yet all of this doesn't seem to have any impact whatsoever on the graduation rate. One would think with such bad outcomes, you would have a much lower graduation rate.
One would think, and I think, the positive momentum out there is to just move kids along, regardless of how they're performing, and that has damaging, lasting effects on kids. I remember seeing a story a couple months ago of a girl that graduated somewhere out east, New York or Connecticut or something, and she graduated with honors in her high school class and couldn't functionally read. We are literally passing kids along without ensuring they have the tools to succeed at life. And I think that's one of the most criminal things that we could be doing as a school system. And it's one of the reasons they passed kind of important literacy reforms at the state level. So districts have to really look at how a kid's performing now before they just pass them on to the next grade. I'm looking, you got to look at Milwaukee. So Milwaukee has proficiency. If you subtract 8, you're talking about right around 15 or 16% proficiency in ELA and English language arts, and less than that if you're looking at math. And yet almost 70% of Milwaukee students graduate, and DPI says they meet expectations. So there's another thing you get to know. What DPI says, what's the school report card say? This district meets expectations. It's considered among the 10 worst school districts in the country, and DPI says it meets expectations. Yeah, this is something we're really closely monitoring. Not only did DPI change all the cut scores on the exams that feed into that report card, and the report card examines the district and individual schools and gives them a grade, right? They also changed the cut scores on what meets expectations. So that's how you get districts like Milwaukee and Beloit and others, in that middle category of meeting expectations, despite having some of the worst test scores in the country. And not only that, if you going back to that chronic absenteeism number, you look at Milwaukee, they're at 47.5% of their kids are chronically absent.
Yeah.
That means they're not in the classroom learning. Something needs to change if we want to really get the city back on track.
So, another, again, great piece of data. You can now see who's going in, who's leaving, who's using open enrollment to go in, who's using open enrollment to leave. And most districts are seeing open enrollment in far, far lower than open enrollment out. And so, again, that's why people maybe don't know about open enrollment. If you need to escape a school district, you can, that is something you can do. In Milwaukee, there is what looks like a little bit over 3,000 more people leaving than coming in. And again, the Milwaukee School District, what did I just see? $1.2 billion for almost 50% chronic absentee rate, a high number of disciplinary incidents, a declining enrollment, and some of the worst proficiency scores in the country.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think
but more money.
The interesting thing, yes, not only that, they're screaming that they don't have enough money at this point, that they're going to be facing a big budget shortfall. So it just tells you how badly things are mismanaged. But looking at the open enrollment data, I think this is one of those things that a lot of people don't know about. Like you said, it's our largest choice program in the state. There's over 74,000 kids using open enrollment to go to another public school district. And what you really see trend-wise is the districts that are higher performing obviously have more transfers in versus out, and vice versa for the lower performing districts. So we get to see parents using that option, and I think it's a good one.
School choice is also just exploding in popularity, which again should be a cue to all of this should be cues to the legislature. There should not have been an increase in spending on K-12 education. There are fewer kids going. There are worse outcomes, and you've got more and more people fleeing via choice programs. But I guess that's for next budget. I guess we'll talk about that for next budget. But in terms of what local parents can use this for, this is when they lie to you and say, we need more money, we're so broke. You can use this tool and say, the heck you do. Why are scores so bad? Why have you done nothing about the discipline problems? Why are we seeing declining enrollment? Why do you need more money? If there's declining enrollment, maybe you can consolidate some school buildings. Why? This is the power behind the resistance to the constant call for more property tax increases and more spending.
Yeah, and I think this is our version of transparency. Transparency empowers your listeners to really hold their elected officials accountable. And I think that's what we strive for with this tool, is to really give you the tools to go talk intelligently to your school board members about what your district's needs are and what changes need to be made to better the outcomes for kids. Because that's, at the end of the day, that is the number one thing that school districts are supposed to be focused on, is ensuring that they're educating kids properly. And this gives taxpayers, parents, everyone the tools they need to really start asking the right questions.
Kyle Koenen, I appreciate the time on the program today. As always, thank you so much. Policy Director for Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Go to knowmyschoolwi.com. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Vicki.
Great to have you.